He thought it was going to be nothing, just another forgettable moment in a long, quiet day. That's how these stories usually start, right? One person thinking they're insignificant, another person thinking they're in control, and somewhere in between, everything changes. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of afternoon where time moves slow and people move slower. I was standing in line at a neighborhood grocery store I'd been going to for years, wearing an old hoodie, worn sneakers, nothing about me screaming important. And honestly, that was the point. I liked being invisible. I'd spent most of my life being judged before I ever opened my mouth, so blending in felt like freedom. I paid for my groceries, tucked my card back into my wallet, and took 2 steps toward the exit before realizing I'd left my receipt at the self-checkout. I turned around thinking nothing of it when I heard a voice behind me. Loud, sharp, the kind of voice that doesn't ask, it commands. Hey, you, stop. At first I didn't even register it. Then a hand grabbed my arm. Not a tap, a grip, tight enough to tell me this wasn't a misunderstanding. I turned and saw him, Officer Mark Halverson. Late 20s, maybe clean uniform, that practiced look of authority people mistake for confidence. You forgot something, he said, eyes scanning my bag like he'd already made up his mind. My receipt, I answered calmly. It's printing. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Funny, because from where I was standing it looked like you were walking out without paying. That's the moment. The one anyone who's ever been judged knows too well. That split second where you realize this isn't about what you did, it's about who he thinks you are. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from familiarity. Yeah, that happened, I explained. Slowly, clearly. I even pointed toward the machine, but he wasn't listening. He stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was doing me a favor. You people always have a story. The store went quiet. You could feel it. People pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. And right then, I had a choice. I could raise my voice, escalate, play the role he'd already written for me. Or I could stay exactly where I was and let him keep digging. I paid, I said again. And you're welcome to check. He didn't check. He didn't ask the cashier. He didn't look at the camera above us. He reached for his cuffs. Turn around, he said. I remember thinking this can't be real. This is Groceries, a loaf of bread and some eggs. But the cuffs clicked anyway. Tight. Too tight. When I flinched, he barked, "Stop resisting," loud enough for everyone to hear. I wasn't resisting. I was standing still, staring at the floor, listening to my own heartbeat. He marched me outside like he'd just made the bust of his career, ignoring the receipt that finally slid onto the tile behind us. The ride to the station was quiet except for the radio. He hummed along, tapping the wheel. I sat there, wrists burning, replaying every second. Not angry yet, not even scared. Just aware. Fully, painfully aware. At booking, things got worse. Charges stacked like they were on sale. Theft, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest. Each one typed without hesitation. I told them my name. They barely looked up. I gave my address, and they laughed. Must be nice, one of them muttered. I was placed in a holding cell with a kid who couldn't have been more than 19. He looked terrified. Told me he'd been picked up by the same officer for suspicious behavior. Said the officer claimed he found something in his pocket that wasn't there before. That's when it clicked. This wasn't bad luck. This was routine. I made my phone call. Not to family, not to a friend, to someone who understood systems and how they break. When I told him where I was, there was a pause, then a quiet, "Don't say another word. I'm coming." The energy in that station changed fast when he arrived. Suits, cameras, questions nobody wanted to answer. Suddenly, my name mattered. Suddenly, people were reading screens more carefully. Suddenly, Officer Halverson wasn't smiling. They came to open my cell. Apologizing, rushed, nervous. I stayed seated. "I'll leave," I said when the man who put me here takes these cuffs off himself. You should have seen his face when they brought him down. No swagger, no confidence. Just a man realizing the story he told himself wasn't going to save him. He unlocked the cuffs, mumbled an apology that barely qualified as words. I walked past him without looking back. What happened next wasn't fast. It wasn't cinematic. It was paperwork interviews, footage records, patterns emerging where excuses used to be, complaints buried, settlements hidden. A trail of people who'd been counted on to stay quiet. The city tried to control the narrative, question my credibility, dig up old decisions, frame compassion as weakness. But lies don't age well, and truth has a way of stacking evidence until it collapses under its own weight. By the time it was over, the number on the settlement didn't feel real. $1.3 million. People kept asking how it felt to win. That word never sat right with me. This wasn't a game. I used the money to fund legal defense for people who never get believed. People who don't have someone to call. People who get written off because it's easier. Months later, I went back to that same store, bought the same bread, took my receipt. A young officer stopped me. Not to accuse, just to say things were changing. Training, oversight, accountability. Good, I told him, make it stick. Because here's the thing. This story isn't about one bad cop or one lucky outcome. It's about how easy it is for power to forget it answers to anyone. And how dangerous it is when silence feels safer than speaking up. So now, I want to hear from you. Was what happened justice or just damage control? Was the settlement enough, or does real accountability cost more than money? Drop your thoughts below. Argue, disagree, share your own story. Because the only way these things stop happening is if we refuse to pretend they're rare.